counselor training program for camp prior to 1987 consisted of 2 sessions. One, Romans Road, was a way to evangelize to a child through the book of Romans, and the second one was a session on cabin devotions. The only other time they met was to take a tour of camp. Since 1987, counselor training program has taken a dramatic shift.
Camper-counselor relationship was very, very significant. That campers actually appreciated the love that the counselors showed for them. And we knew we were onto something, because in past surveys, campers actually related their relationship with their counselor above the speaker, above the program, even above the program, even above the water slide. So this was significant, that the counselors actually made a difference in their campers' lives. They actually made an impact. We needed to find a way to make sure, to assure ourselves that this love was going to be more and more driven by the love of Christ. And in order to do this, we had to capture and convey all this in some way, shape, or form. And we knew that we had to figure out a way to do that.
In 1988, there was no in-house group of people to make camp happen. And so everything happened through one person, and there was no such thing as Genesis from 1988 to 1989. But we still had to get the training of counselors done. And so we followed the concept, at least the concept that we know now, of first who, then what. We had to figure out who to get on the bus and who to not. And so we started to realize that the training of our counselors and the screening of our counselors was most important, because their relationship with God was what the campers remember the most as significant. And along with the screening of counselors in 1988, I started to think about, well, of a new administrative core of people to make camp happen. And since 1988, the camp administration, as well as counselor training program, would never be the same.
We believe that counselors could be trained spiritually and otherwise, especially in things like the program. And this was actually a very innovative concept back in the day, because not a whole lot of programs were doing this. We really believe that they could be trained and equipped in a spiritual way as well as in a programmatic way. And this was really a concept that was birthed here within. It wasn't something that we copied elsewhere, because not a whole lot of places were doing it at that time. But so what we did was we gathered a collection of random articles, how to lead a child to Christ, things from Billy Graham, arts and crafts material that we put together, as well as programmatic information, how to lead small groups, a random collection of articles to motivate counselors, to have them thinking about what it means to care for a person. And these things were collected, put together, and in our first manual. And in 1988, for the first time, we actually screened counselors for the first time, and that screened group of counselors were the first ones to go through what we call CTP, our first real CTP. And that later on became the heart of really the what, the how, the why of what we do.
The success of CTP was qualitative. Although we did not see an increase in numbers in campers, Fuji caught the bug of working in a collaborative team environment as opposed to doing everything alone. The ministry was starting to grow. As a result, the Genesis staff was started in 1990 in the basement of the Korean Bible Church in Glenside, PA. The development of this staff lies at the heart to this day of the direction, the program, and the training of our counselors and our campers. The initial members of Genesis were composed of Fuji Kim, Lily Chun, Ben Choi, Danny Kwan, and Heeju Sun. Donnie wasn't yet an active member, but he was around, helping out in random ways, taking care of some miscellaneous tasks, and definitely offering his 2 cents here and there.
By 1991, the group grew. Genesis grew to include Michael Kwan, Simon Kang, and myself. Simon Kang later on moved away. The year after, Lily Chun actually ended up leaving the Genesis, and by 1993, Genesis went down to 6 members. Soon after that, by 1994, we went down to 3 members, of course with some interim help.
Fuji, Heeju, and Donnie, they were the Genesis from 1994 through the next several years. By 1996, with Heeju potentially departing, and with Donnie on the brink, a new group of young campers were added to mid-level status. not yet ready for full prime time. And so came myself, Robert Lee, Annie Cho, and Maggie Sun. In 1996, Robert was elevated to Genesis, and by 1997, Annie had dropped out, and both Maggie and myself had been elevated to Genesis status.
We believed that people can be changed, that we can experience true change. And so we started to seek after sources and methods of helping people change, that is, counseling them. And I stumbled across Victorious Christian Living approach by Noyes Laban International. And it had nice diagrams, but it didn't really fully engage how we thought people are and how people really change. After several other false starts with counseling approaches, while studying at Westminster Seminary, I came across biblical counseling from CCEF, Christian Counseling and Education Foundation. It engaged my heart, it transformed my heart, and ever since then, we've been using that approach to biblical counseling for our ministry. When the people of God, when their hearts are engaged by God's Word, that is Christ, people change. It was a fundamental change to the way that we approached ministry and counseling. It changed everything.
All through the years of the Lord's grace in developing CTP, we added seminars on camp programming, recreation, arts and crafts, and Christian education. We stopped using the Bible study materials from outside sources some years ago, and we developed them on our own, beginning in 1997. Donnie had developed programming and Christian education while preparing to convey what it means to be a counselor at camp. Camp by 1998 had become a full-blown ministry, driven by a consistent approach, methodology, and framework. Robert Lee eventually dropped out of Genesis and camp in 2000.
Biblical counseling set the platform for the remaining part of our ministry. But biblical counseling also helped us to be Christ-centered in our approach to all of ministry and sanctification. And little by little, it made us to be more grace-driven and gospel-driven. And it turned out that the gospel that we knew became so much bigger than we'd ever thought. The gospel was not just for justification, it was also for sanctification. The gospel not just saves sinners, but sanctifies saints. And it became a fundamental way of looking at life, ministry, and our camp ministry. Ever since 1999, it changes us and it continues to change us.
The core values being the gospel, being gospel-focused, the paradigm of biblical counseling for counsel and education, team-based ministry, and innovative programming. This really was the beginning of seeing CTP, Camp, and Genesis infrastructurally and looking at things, looking at the underlying factors that will guide and drive our ministry from here on forward. We now are working year after year to realign or align or orient all the things that we do really around these set of core values. Literally, within the last couple of years then, what we're basically seeing from 2004 plus or minus those couple of years is all the weaknesses and limitations that were being revealed to us in our collaborative efforts, in our productivity, in just the dynamics of and the relationships within the Genesis as well. It was really pointing to a greater need to look at things on a whole new level and possibly a whole new approach. And that's really God's grace in this ministry to help to make it and to redesign what we do and reform what we do going forward.
We believe that counselors can make a fundamental difference in campers' lives. We believe that so much that we're willing to spend most of our time training our counselors over the summer. Now, others believe that, but they have a harder time functionally living that out. They say, well, Bible study is important, our speakers are important, and our counselors are important, but they do not spend actual time training their counselors. We believe that this is a fundamental flaw.
The message changes the messenger. The counselor is a vital part of the teaching and preaching ministry. The speaker preaches Christ. The counselor intimately models Christ.
So our program is ever-changing, ever-evolving, ever-reforming, ever-refining, to the point where you sit here today enjoying the benefits of what years and years of change has really brought us to. Will there ever be new innovation, new innovative practices? Yes, of course there will be. Will there ever be new thoughts and insights that will change the way we counsel, change the way we do programming, change the way we teach, and change the way we do ministry altogether? Of course there will be. And these changes could be life-changing and could be monumental. But our values will always be the same. And they'll be unchanging. And our way of doing ministry as a result, now what we see are, because of the gospel and because of our values, we're going to see greater limitations, more and more limitations, more weaknesses, even in our own character, my personal character, the character of our team. And this is God's blessing. And the beauty of this is that we see this as God's blessing to provide us new opportunities to grow and mature and change as a ministry, as a community, as a team. We are welcoming you to an incredible tradition. It is not just a home, not just a family, not just a community, but a tradition. And part of this changing and transformation process, we invite you to that, and we welcome you to that. So as I close now, we're going to continue on moving forward prayerfully, humbly, and hopefully as the Lord leads us. And as a community within here, within this group, changes each other and changes the members in the community, we're going to be hoping for more of the gospel, more of Jesus, so that as we change inwardly, we will be empowered to do ministry in greater lengths, to greater extents outwardly. So we welcome you now to this ministry, to this camp, to this family, to this community, to this tradition, to this hope for excellence, for pioneering in the gospel ministry. We welcome you.